August. I am reading. Welcome to another vlog. I am just about to start a new book, and this is 3 Rooms by Jo Hamya. Have not started this yet, but I'm very, very eager to, and I thought this would be the perfect opportunity as the winter sun is starting to leave for the day. This color really fits into the aesthetic right now, and this book feels incredibly poignant, especially with everything that's kind of happening in the world right now. This was originally published in 2021, and I'm really, really excited to dig my teeth into this one. It feels like it really went under the radar. There are hardly any ratings or reviews of this on Goodreads anywhere, and it's quite short. This follows a young woman who is in the millennial generation, and it follows over the course of a year. She lives in 3 different apartments and rooms. She moves from a rented room in Oxford, where she's working as a research assistant, then to a stranger's sofa, which is all she can afford as a copy editing temp at a society magazine, and then to her childhood home, where she's been forced to return jobless, even a room of her own out of reach. As politics shift to nationalism, the streets fill with protesters, and news drip feeds into her phone, she struggles to live a meaningful life on her own terms, unsure if she'll ever be able to afford to do so. Woof, woof. And there are direct references to Virginia Woolf's A Room of One's Own, so I think there are a lot of nods to Woolf's work in this as well. It's described as pushing there's my heat, my timely heat. I'm so incredibly grateful to have heat in my home, but I'm so sorry for the hum in the background. I feel like it always kicks up right when I'm filming, so I feel like this is gonna be very, very relevant to what is still happening today, especially when it comes to the political shifts and everything like that as well. Very, very curious to read this. Thank you so incredibly much for being here. I genuinely hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying warm if it is also a frigid polar vortex where you are. I'm incredibly grateful to have you here, and I will check in with you very soon.
Okay, let's try this.
Oh my god! Holy shit, I love this book. Oh, I love this book. I love this book. I love this book. I am reading it slowly. Each sentence is immaculate and full of so much emotion and intellect, and it feels like this author has such a firm grasp on editorial magazine style of writing, where it perfectly paints a picture in one sentence, as well as adding just generations and decades and years of data and information and feeling what it feels like to be living in this modern day society without just stating facts and statistics. You know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm talking about? This book is a beautiful blend of, like, if you like The Idiot by Elif Batuman mixed with Talent by Juliet Lapidus, which is a very underrated book. I always try and recommend it because I think if you like that world of academia, not necessarily dark academia, just like modern day kind of depressed woman moving narrative, this is at the intersection of that, but it talks specifically about Brexit and this juncture, this crossroads of an entire nation, of an entire world, of an entire governmental system that is now shifting and tilting on its axis that has already been created and established, and what that means in this modern day world where it feels like you own nothing and you live in this impermanent state of flux, and you are constantly at the mercy of your landlords, at the mercy of your government, at the mercy of your people, your community, the people around you. Specifically when it comes to this book really touches on themes of racism, of nationalism, and as well as privilege. There's such heavy topics, but this book has a way of making it accessible and painful at the same time. It feels so realistic. This is also one of the only books I feel like I've read in recent years where the main character we're reading from, or even just the author, we're able to be immersed in the modern day world without it feeling like complete existential dread, and a character is able to pull up their smartphone and not have that actually deter from the plot or feel like, yucky, this is too modern, I'm reading because I don't want to be on my phone. I don't read a lot of modern releases, and a lot of books I feel like that come out now, so many of them take place in the 90s or early 2000s, where the phone just can't solve every problem. And in this novel, the phone seems to be its own character, where it's a catalyst for really important conversations about numbing yourself out, becoming really detached from the world around you, but also trying to be an activist, trying to be informed, trying to be on the right side of history, trying to filter through this barrage of stuff that you're given every day. This character has a really interesting relationship specifically with Twitter, but it's not icky to read about. I don't know how to explain it more than that. Sometimes I just don't like reading about social media, or characters who are social media influencers or anything. Like, it's fun if it's in like a rompy kind of thriller way, but this uses social media as a catalyst. There are so many beautiful lines in here. And this is one of those books that I'm kind of an all or nothing annotator, honestly. If I go into a book and there are a few lines that stick out to me in the first 50 pages, I'll annotate them for sure. But if there are too many lines that are too good within the first 50 pages, I won't annotate the book at all, because I'm like, well, the whole book would just be pen marks and highlighters at this point. So this is a nothing book. I'm not annotating anything in it because I think the whole thing is great and amazing. And every paragraph, there's a line that feels so relevant, so monumental, so historic, so memorable. I had to pull out ye old handy dandy notebook. Who remembers this? I haven't opened it in so long, y'all. I don't know how I was surviving making videos every 3 days. I don't know how I was doing that while working 2 full-time jobs. I don't know how I was doing that. Anyway, I tried to make some notes here. Social media in this book represents like an archival system. This author has such an amazing way of viewing things into completely different lenses and categorizes them into how would we look back at this time 20, 50 years from now? And social media is seen as this archival system, this museum, this like very impermanent state of opinion that with one swipe of your thumb, like you've gone past that history. but also in 50 years it's gonna be like, wow, that's what we were thinking back then? That's kind of kooky. There's just a throwaway line, and I say that not meaning it was pointless, but just like the paragraph did not even linger on this, but I thought it was so beautiful that a purse is just a transportable home. You just put everything that you might need from the comfort of your home into your purse, and then you go out to the day, and then boom, you have your home kind of on you. So there was just this beautiful tiny little 2 sentences about her putting like Vaseline in her bag and like a charger, a phone charger, and all these things. There was a really wonderful exploration of literature in the US versus in the UK. And she says that stories from the US are always about trying to find your home, this kind of manifest destiny. You gotta create your own home and pioneer the land. And then the stories from the UK are more like fables. And also you either have a home or you don't. There's a lot of conversations as well about like wealth and privilege, and there's this beautiful side story. We're following a minor character in this in part 1, and the minor character is talking about how she recently moved away from her apartment, but she doesn't know where to go at night, so she keeps finding herself walking to her apartment, her old apartment, and just watching whoever lives there now. And that is such a visceral, palpable feeling that makes me so sad and ill inside, is thinking about all the places that I've lived that weren't actually mine. And I had made an entire life there, I made an entire home, and now someone else is just living there. This person was talking about how like, oh, they've decorated it all wrong, and like now the neighborhood is up and coming. So then they have a side conversation about gentrification. Like this book touches on it all, on all of it, and what it feels like to be a millennial, and what it feels like to, I'm sure Gen Z can relate to this as well, like this existence where you're just expected to be so adaptable, and at any point the rug can be pulled under you and you just don't have your home anymore, and it costs so much to live in a country that maybe you just like don't even feel safe in. But it's just all normalized because these are privileged cities. We're talking about Oxford, we're talking about London in this book specifically. So it's bringing up a lot of kind of dichotomous feelings in our main character and our protagonist. And I just kind of wrote about like loss of home equals your loss of identity, and you lose your sense of identity through social media, through a nationalism lens, through this world of these different mindsets that we just get completely lost in. I honestly could have a field day talking about this book, as well as analyzing it and reading everything out loud. There are too many. So I am just now starting part 2, where our protagonist has just moved to London. So she's in her second home, quote unquote, or second room, where she is just subletting a couch for $80 a month to stay in London to work as a literary agent, because she was trying to move her degree at Oxford and her studies at Oxford into the real world. She didn't want to stay in academia. And that was another wonderful conversation that she's having with colleagues about like, isn't the whole point of academia to learn, to grow, and then to go use those tools out in the world? But so many people who are in academia just stay in academia. So that was a really interesting conversation. Like this, I don't know how this so fluently and so minimally, this is a tiny book, touches on so many freaking topics that are so relevant and important, still happening. Obviously this was published in 2021, but to think that we're in 2026 now, and it's 5 years later, and this is still so relevant, and I think it's just gotten worse. You know, as much as I can relate to it, I am like a millennial white woman in the United States, different than this book for sure. And so many topics that are still so prevalent today that reading this just feels like you're able to read validation as well as a different perspective on a character who is just meandering a little bit and doesn't quite know like what to do or where to go. But yet we don't really spend too much time in her head. In part 1 of this book, we are just flying through a whole academic year with her, and it's just beautifully done. This writing style, everything about this is 1,000,000% up my alley, and I am loving it. Her relationships to other people, really interesting, but also we're not looking at things through a microscopic lens at all. We're not really getting to know people on a super, super deep level. It's more of we're learning about the political landscape and what things just feel like? Like, why do things feel so challenging and weird? You know, she talks about how the only reason she wants to get a job that pays well is so that way she can have a room of her own where she can host dinner parties with her friends who are also just trying to work enough to host dinner parties for their friends in a room. They're just trying to afford a room so they can have dinner with their friends. Like, that is it. And it's just a lot of conversations like that, but it's so beautifully written. Oh, I could just like point to any little section in here. There was no way to win the Privilege Olympics, and she could not blame someone like the influencer, however ridiculous they had been, for living so much of their life online. There was all the space you wanted there. You paid no money for it. You could do with it whatever you chose. She remembered the early stages of Twitter when she was 14, how furnishing her profile with the exact HTML shade of lilac text, the perfect banner, and assorted heart symbols had been as crucial to her as decorating her room. So that is what I'm currently reading. I'm 90 pages through, which means I only have 100 pages left. This is an itty bitty book. I want to finish it. I just want to sit down and read it. However, I'm enjoying my time with it immensely, and I think it would behoove me to read this slowly, to read it daintily, because each sentence I think is just masterfully constructed. I think it's beautiful, and I really, really just want to marinate in this one. It's so, so, so incredible. So I'm loving this, enjoying it, highly recommend it. I'll check in with you soon. That sun is beautiful. Would you believe me if I told you this is my fully natural hair? Honestly, gobsmacked. My hair, it's amazing. Anyway, hi friends. Someone is revving an engine repeatedly somewhere in the vicinity of my home. Oh, it's irking me, and I'm so sorry if you can hear that. I finished 3 rooms. I have thoughts. Let's talk about it. Let's digest it. Oh, the ending of this. I took some notes. The ending just did not wow me. From my own personal reading experience, part 1 was phenomenal. I loved it. I loved this transient character. We don't really know much about her. And that stays, I would say, through part 2, where majority of this book feels like you're reading from this main protagonist's perspective, which I don't even think we have her name. And she doesn't really seem to offer much information about herself. You're gaining information through her interactions with others, how other people tell her how she's acting or how she's being or who she's acting like. That's a really unique way of us gaining a lot of intel. I like that because it's showing us rather than telling us who this character is. However, part 3 was just so on the nose to me. It felt like when you're writing a paper and you have to write your conclusion to wrap up because of this, this, and this, and it's just regurgitating all the things that we already learned, that we already said, that we already knew and figured out on our own, and then it was consolidated into this small part 3, which I think part 3 is maybe only, I'm gonna guess, like 12 pages long. And I just didn't enjoy that. It felt like this whole experience was like, maybe I don't trust you to understand what this is about and what this character is feeling. So let's make it really, really obvious. And I just didn't enjoy that ending. Please stop revving their engine, please. In my notes, I wrote here, a rushed navel-gazing end. The book felt more like a catalog of things and people happening to the narrator, others telling her her personality, and then in turn, that's telling us her personality. Self-awareness and own thoughts felt forced at the end, felt very detached, and it just didn't stick the landing. So that's kind of what I wrote at the very end. Another little brief segment. So in part 2 is when we're following our protagonist. She's working at an editorial, like a magazine, in the higher echelons of society in London, and she's staying on a couch. So there's this interesting duality between her not being able to afford basic amenities, let alone like renting her own room, to then working in this very posh environment where people know everyone, there's social connections and gossip and celebrities. And then all the while over this is this ubiquitous blanket of nationalism, Brexit. There are a lot of conversations in here about Brexit that I personally don't know. As a US citizen, I'm not fully aware of how the parliament works. I'm not really sure how the royal family works, how all that goes together, all of the different MPs. There's so many different facets of the government over that I have no awareness of. This author doesn't offer any explanation, or you just have to know this information to get it. So overarching throughout this entire novel is the awareness that we are in a very specific period of time. We are in a specific moment in history. This is when things are happening. Yeah, it just really made me lose steam near the end there. I wasn't fully invested. I wasn't fully interested. The writing style seemed to lose itself as well. I don't think we stuck with that beautiful writing, like we can trust the reader to understand what we're putting down here. It just turned a little bit, like I said, navel-gazy. And that's okay. I like navel-gazing books. I just think that the transition was very interesting. Again, it could have been intentional. Our main character is coming to terms with a lot of things in her life and is maybe just having to look more inward. So we're reading from this a little bit more claustrophobic point of view, which I would understand. I just didn't think that, again, it stuck the landing necessarily for me. Overall, this was an okay book. It started out so strong. I loved it. And then near the end there, things just didn't quite seem to understand itself or what it was doing. That's just what it felt like to me personally. Overall, I highly recommend it. It still talks about so many different topics. Oh yeah, one of the other things I talked about in the middle of the book, I made a note about the mental gymnastics of the dying middle class. I also wrote, phones bring awareness, not answers, because it's just this battlefield of differing opinions. Everyone can rip anyone apart online for any little thing. It is just so black and white, and the rich is getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. Like this classification of like, ooh. So the middle class is just kind of being ripped apart of like, you're so privileged, and also like, but I can't afford a house of my own. Like it's this oscillating, uncomfortable conversation throughout the whole book. And the fact that our protagonist, as well as our author, is not white, they never talk about like their actual race. There's just maybe like 2 lines in here where they just say like, but I'm not white. Oh my gosh, there's Winston. Look at that tiny head. His head is so small. I highly recommend this book because it touches on every single topic that I feel is relevant if you are a millennial, maybe even a Gen Z. You can't afford your own house. You're working. You are a part of the working middle class, which is a dying breed at this point. The middle class is like getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you're getting kind of pushed out of that zone. Then this is kind of like the millennial middle class Bible, I do say. Especially because she did have access to these amazing places like Oxford and London. Like, so there's that gymnastics. You know, she has access to these places and she was able to get jobs and in these places, but yet she can't actually afford to live there. That's happened to me many times in my life where I've been given opportunities, but I can't actually afford to take those opportunities. So that is 3 Rooms. I think I've talked enough about it now and digested it. I feel like I could really talk about it so much more because there's so much to address. But anyway, I did recently watch the Stepford Wives featuring Nicole Kidman, so the early 2000s version. And I don't know why I never knew Ira Levin wrote that novel. I was absolutely gobsmacked by that because I loved Rosemary's Baby. So I had to go to my library and get an edition of The Stepford Wives because I think this, ooh, I'm gonna fly through this. This is tiny. It's only 123 pages. I would love to read this. And I might vlog for the rest of tonight. If not, I might end the vlog here. And then tomorrow start a new vlog because I'm taking a few little road trips soon and I want to vlog those as separate little experiences. I think that would be very darling. So thank you so incredibly much for being here, friends. I hope this was fun. We just kind of went through one book and experienced it together and really got into the nitty-gritty of it. Winnie's gonna keep yelling at me, so I'm gonna go play with him. But thank you so incredibly much for being here, friends. Yep, there he goes. But thank you all so incredibly much for being here. I so appreciate you. If you would like to leave a comment, but you're not sure what to say, please feel free to let us know what you're currently reading. I would love to know, and how you're enjoying it as well. If you don't want to be perceived that way, I totally understand. Please feel free to leave us some little emojis that kind of describe the plot or the title or the cover art of the book that you're currently reading. I would love to know and I would love to hear more. Thank you so incredibly much for being here again. This was so fun. What a delightful little vlog. I can't wait to see you all very soon. Until then, stay cozy, my friends. Bye!